Senator Guthrie.
Thank you, Mr. President, Senators. You know, our efforts to fund transportation have had an interesting history. Over the years, a lot of studies have been done. I can remember back when I was a county commissioner, they were studying the issue, and that's back when the first Garvey started. The latest study showed that we needed $262 million annually just for maintenance. And that just for maintenance part has certainly reared its ugly head this winter. So in recognition of that, 2 years ago we tacked $90 million onto the problem with some upside potential from the surplus eliminator and recognized at the time that it was not enough when we passed it. So not surprisingly, here we are again, and this time we're seeking to borrow the money. Money not necessarily for maintenance, but for new construction, more lane miles to maintain when we can't maintain the ones we have now. So why is that? Why do we opt to incorporate this particular concept into our funding model? You know, the last time that the gas tax was increased, not counting the 7 cents from 2 years ago, was 1996. So I don't have to tell you how politically difficult of a sale it is to raise taxes in Idaho. Even though I don't recall personally one negative comment from a constituent over the raise that we imposed 2 years ago. But I would submit to you that borrowing money is absolutely nothing more than a tax. Granted, with Garvey, Idaho residents will not see a cost bump at the pump or when they register their car if this legislation passes. I personally think that's one of the major reasons we entered into the original Garvey bonding over 10 years ago. It's the path of least resistance, but not necessarily the best path, and certainly not the only path. There should be a sheet on your desk that shows the repayment obligations for the Garvey that we have now. I'll call your attention to the highlighted areas. In FY17, our debt service will be over $58 million. $28 million of that is interest. This comes out of the $296 million we received from the feds in 2017. So 20% is going to debt service, not paid off until 2032. Imagine what we could do with an additional $58 million every year. And if you look at the bottom of the page, you will see the borrowed total of $858 million for road construction over the years. For the privilege of having done that, we get to pay back $1,238.7 million, or nearly $400 million in interest. So how do we characterize the $400 million? Do we think it's not a financial burden on Idaho residents? Sure seems like a form of taxation to me. Senators, I'm not oblivious. I've heard the arguments. Prices and interest rates are favorable right now. We need to build our infrastructure to build our economy. $1 spent today on a road saves us $7 tomorrow. This winter's been harsh and we must fix our roads. I don't argue with any of those points. But do we believe those same arguments won't be just as valid in 5 years, in 10 years, in 25 years? When our kids and grandkids are sitting in these seats or filling up at Idaho gas pumps or registering their cars at county courthouses? And do we believe this winter was a one-time anomaly? Senators, a governmental agency borrowing money is a tricky and risky business and a dangerous business to enter into. We need look no further than our federal government as an example of what not to do. We brag all the time that we do not spend beyond our means and have a balanced budget, but do we really if we borrow money to this extent? Just a few weeks ago, I believe it was the senator from 35 who stood up and said in the 1980s our national debt was $500 billion. Today it's $20 trillion, 40 times greater in 30 some odd years. Let's not fall for that flawed business model. Senators, I admire the hard work that's been done by the senator from 23. I believe he's done more to address how we fund and maintain our road situation that anyone I know. I consider him a friend, and I could not have any greater respect. But because of the way Senate Bill 1188 seeks to solve the problem, when I believe we do have other options, I could not be more opposed to this legislation. If you're like me, you've been driving down the interstate at times and come up on a motorhome, some nice, some not so nice, and it'll have a bumper sticker across the back that says, "We are spending our kids' inheritance." And I don't know, maybe there's a certain amount of humor intended there and a certain amount of truth. I think we're at a juncture where we have to ask ourselves some hard questions. What do we want our kids and grandkids to inherit? I believe the next generations will face many challenges. Let's not shove another $300 million of debt on what is sure to be an already full plate. Thank you, Mr. President.